and ain't no wannabes here. With some not so nice advice for your writing career. To be clear, no punches will be pulled, but the punch may be spiked. How they like before they get on the mic. To my left, we got the mighty Mer Lafferty. And if I piss her off, believe me, she'll come after me. And her co-host, Matt Evan Wallace, on the right. Yes, she may be half as hype as she can take him in a fight. So settle in, folks, buckle in and boot up. Time to meddle in a way to make you write or shut up. It's hard work, but the perk is that it's fun and exciting. Facebook will still be there when you're done writing. Ditch Diggers! Ditch Diggers!
Coming to you live from Morgan Freeman's 24-hour news network control room. It is the Ditch Diggers with Mer Lafferty and Matt Wallace. And if my new toy were working now, I would hit the applause button, but it's not working now. So I just have to say, yay! How are you, Matt?
I'm good. She's not. I'm talking about you in the third person number.
Okay.
Not kidding either. I have to. I don't just blow segues. I blow point of view.
Mm-hmm.
She's being literal, folks. She actually has a new effects machine that she was very excited about employing. But it's not working, so you don't get to hear any of it. I don't even get to hear any of it. She was doing it earlier, and I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, that's the problem. I can't get it to record, and I can't get it so Matt can hear it. So I could play applause, and Matt would just keep talking.
Although now that I think about it, since I haven't heard it and you can't do it, it's possible you're lying about the whole thing.
It is possible.
I don't know why. I mean, you brought it up, so I don't know why you would do that. But it is entirely possible.
It is possible, but I mean,
cool.
Of all the things that I would lie to you about, that's, I don't know. It's like I have a Band-Aid on my finger, Matt.
Well, now I'm sorry.
I don't really.
I know. Oh, I was going to say I'm sorry about that. I thought you were being serious. No, so
I'm
what?
lying about that.
Well, now I'm really curious. What would you lie to me about, Mom? This is just going to go off a cliff now.
It is. It really is. There's no good answer to this.
Like 10 years of friendship, we're going to start peeling these really deep psychological layers and it's going to end terribly.
Mm-hmm.
No, but the thing about the sound effects machine, I say, segueing away from dangerous personal territory, is you got to be careful with that shit because it starts with applause and it's cute, it's fun. And then, before you know, we're doing like morning zoo radio.
Yep.
And you've got like a clown nose and all that shit. And you got to be careful. People can become addicted to effects machines. It's a real thing.
When I was unwrapping it, I was looking at the options and I thought, wow, this is the blink tag from 1996. I could so abuse this thing. But
it becomes an integral part of your everyday life. You're just carrying around a mobile version. You start communicating. It's like how people only text in emojis now.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to start communicating with 90s era sound effects.
Yeah. So yeah, I will probably only use this for myself, and that's if I could make it actually happen. And I won't overuse it. I won't get addicted.
I mean, that's what they all say, Mer. That's what they all say. Applause machines are a gateway sound effect.
To what?
To overusing sound effects.
That's a really bad the more you know commercial. You really need to make it pithier.
I mean, look, it's not high on the substance abuse list, nor should it be. I'm not advocating. I'm just saying it's something we need to be aware of, It's like, 10 years ago, nobody talked about pill addiction with teens. Like 10 years from now, we're going to kids are going to be getting addicted to sound effects machines. And I want you to remember that I'm the one who called that. And nobody listened to me.
Okay, well, if I'm in the gutter, urinating on myself, holding my my little machine to my chest and growling like an animal at anybody who tries to take it away from me, I will take a moment out of my haze and think, I should have listened to Matt.
Why are you urinating on yourself? How is that?
Because I'm an addict, and I've spent all my money, and I've lost my family, and I've lost my house, and I haven't paid attention to my personal hygienic needs. And so I'm just playing with the applause button, thinking that everything I do is awesome. So it's like I urinate on myself, and then I hit the applause button, and that makes it okay.
Honestly, all of that makes sense to me, except for how have you gone broke? Because once you buy the machine, like, what else do you spend money on?
Well, anything that I do, I can get applause for. So it's like if I do like a guilty purchase, I'll hit the applause button and just feel okay about it. I'll cut somebody off in traffic. I'll hit the applause button.
So you're spending money just as an excuse to hit the applause button that you
Yeah.
just spent money.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that takes it to a whole other. This got really messed up.
It did.
It did. It's but yes, that's the. It's going to be a future hot button issue, Mer. Speaking of hot buttons, oh, you don't understand. See, everybody listening doesn't understand that was the segue into the topic today. And now that I've pointed that out, I've ruined it.
Now they know.
No, and I'm just going to tell everybody the truth about this, Mer, because this is Ditch Diggers. We don't bullshit.
Right.
We tell the fucking truth.
Tell the fucking truth.
Truth.
I'm okay with it. Go for it.
That's the first T-shirt for the show. Tell the fucking truth.
I'll write it down.
The original topic for this show was going to be something that we had seen everybody talking about, all the writers, but not everybody on Twitter. Like everybody on Twitter is talking about, Taylor Swift writing, Drake's junk or what. I don't fucking know what most people talk about. We follow writers and talk to writers. So this is what all the writers were talking about the week before last. And by this, I don't actually know what it was because we forgot. That's what happened.
Well, also, in our defense, I realized I had scheduled recording with Matt at the same time that I had a doctor's appointment, and so I contacted him and I said, hey, can we move it? And he wrote back saying, I woke up with a crappy cold, so let's just push it off to another time.
We were supposed to record last week, but we had to move it. So we did know what it was last week.
Yeah.
But a week has passed, and a week is like a year in writer time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them. So we don't remember what it was.
But the good news, people are still mad on Twitter.
People are still mad on Twitter. That's what we realized. The thing is, what's really funny about this is as we were trying to psychologically reconstruct whatever the topic was, we kept coming up with other things that we had seen writers and writing community people mad about on Twitter. Because literally every day there is something new that everybody is mad about. And that's when it kind of hit us. We should do a hot button episode and talk about all the hot button issues that have come about the writing business on social media and within our niche community lately, because there's a lot of them. And this is not to say that these things are invalid or that I'm not talking about outrage culture. It's just there. I mean, for one thing, there's a lot to be pissed off about. There always is. There's always something to be pissed off about.
Yeah.
And for another. Because there are a lot of things to be pissed off about, many people will write awful think pieces about them just to piss everybody else off further. That's usually where these things come from.
Yeah,
I think that's how it seems to start with me. Somebody will write a really asinine inane think piece promoting some horrible writing related thing, and everybody will have to tweet that this isn't true at all, and then they'll discuss it and they'll get really mad about it. So we decided we'd talk about a lot of the things we've seen in the past several weeks that were hot button issues. So that's why my segue was so brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really
good. I'm actually not explaining this show so much as talking about why I just did a brilliant segue. Mm-hmm. But it served both purposes.
You're getting kind of meta. We've been talking about applause machines and your segues for the past 7 minutes.
I know, but I think a lot of that was pretty entertaining. So
okay.
But yeah, now it's starting to edge into we should just get to the show. So
yes.
Hot button issues, Mar.
Yes. Well, I want to start out with saying that it's very sad that the internet news is run by clickbait. And even as we complain about, it's like clickbait's like McDonald's. Do you have anybody who says McDonald's is my favorite food ever? No. Nobody fucking says that. But then people still go. People know that clickbait is just clickbait. It's there to either get you really interested or more often piss you off so you can go and you can read and you can get mad and you can say, hey, look at this story. It's full of shit. And then they put a link to it. And then if the person who wrote it does not mind the fact that now a whole bunch of people are saying you're full of shit, they don't mind because the publication's going, you brought in a lot of clicks. Well done. Here's your check. So I think I'm going to start with the more recent one about the Guardian. I think it was in the Guardian. I'm not sure.
It was probably in the Guardian.
But it was like, write every day or just quit writing now.
Yeah, I think that was literally yesterday as we started recording this. I started seeing everybody pissed off about that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, yeah, it's I was thinking about this yesterday as this was happening is there's a big part of me that wants to be like, everybody just shut up about it because we're only perpetuating this asinine clickbait thing. But then the problem with that is, honestly, there are so many beginning or novice writers out there who are so fucking ignorant that they will read something like you have to write every day or you're not a real writer, and they will believe it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They will absolutely believe it. So there actually is a lot of validity, and you have to dispel this shit. So it's a weird catch-22 of, I don't want to participate in this, but I also don't want the next generation of writers being even dumber than this generation of writers. So
Yeah.
that's where this comes from.
And,
So that's
and Matt, I just want to say Matt's using the word ignorant as obviously something you don't know, not that you are willfully stupid or can't be taught. This is because I read the Ray Bradbury Zen and the Art of Writing, like, God, 20 years ago, 25 years ago or something. And I can't even remember exactly what it was, but I think it was the mindset you have when you go to your story, when you sit down at your desk. And basically he thinks if you don't have that mindset, then why be a writer at all? And I thought, well, shit, I don't have that mindset. Ray Bradbury just said I shouldn't be a writer, and that it affected me. I'll be honest, it did.
Oh, yeah, it does.
It really fucked me up.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that when I was thinking about this person, and it's just the fact that absolutes have no place in writing advice.
No, yeah, only Sith deal in absolutes.
Yes,
I think that's very. I choose the word ignorant very deliberately, especially lately, because I would just call everybody stupid, and I realized that is both inaccurate and offensive. I say ignorant to mean you simply don't know. Now, what people do with their ignorance, that's a whole spectrum that I'm not even getting into right now. But yeah, by ignorant, I just mean you don't know any better. You're new. You don't know who to believe. If a big publication puts out an article by somebody, you tend to take it as gospel, not realizing that all of these sites have to fill so many hours of the day with so much content. Now they'll basically publish anything. So that's how you end up with all these crap think pieces. But yeah, there is no one. The end of this topic is there is no one true way. That's what we always end up getting to when we talk about this. There is no one true way to be a writer or to be a real writer. And that's another one that comes up a lot, the real writer thing.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing that was attached to this was if you don't write every day, you're not a real writer. The implication being that anyone who doesn't do that is a poser. And you hear and there's a million different versions of that. It's like if you don't make a certain amount of money, you're not a real writer. If you don't publish with in certain markets, you're not a real writer. People who publish their own fiction are not real writers. It's everybody's got their own version and their own ridiculous standards of this, and they're all crap. They really are. I really, and the thing is, I used to be an elitist like that too. I used to really harbor that. I used to really resent National Novel Writing Month on a deep, profound level because I thought it mocked my profession and my craft and what I worked really hard to attend. And I've kind of let all that go because, for one thing, my blood pressure is just through the roof. I need to calm down, and I don't want to end up.
I'm glad you're taking care of yourself.
I'm trying. I'm gonna start golfing with my fiance. We're trying to get in better shape. It's good. I'm trying to, whatever. But the point being, I've also realized that it's just not. It's you don't need to put other people down to elevate yourself. And it's very hard with writing as a profession because the profession is so devalued by people who are not writers that I think we feel this giant pressure to elevate it amongst ourselves, set these really high impossible standards or these really exclusive standards to try to make it, seem important and archaic and only the chosen ones can do it or something. And that's
we also have internal goals, and most everybody projects everything they experience onto other people, which is why I had lunch with a white dude friend of mine who was saying he just doesn't understand why anybody was offended by Ghost in the Shell because he thought it was fine.
Oh, the Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, oh, well, I'm so glad that you think it's fine. I feel better now.
If everybody just understood that he was okay with it, it would probably, as long as the white guy's not offended, I don't see the problem.
Yeah, but it's like you have your personal goal of where you, what means success in your mind. And if other people are not going for your goal, but they call themselves a writer or they call themselves successful, that makes you feel weird or question your goal or feel like they're questioning your goal, and sometimes you just got to put your head down and do the fucking work. I mean,
Yeah,
every
just do
time people get really upset about these think pieces, I'm thinking, all this energy, you could be putting it somewhere else. Although it needs to be addressed. Of course.
in a healthy, hopefully brief context.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Here's the thing: when you become so obsessed with all of these things that you don't write, that I think then you're not a real writer. That's what I'll say. The only real standard for being a real writer is you write things sometimes.
Yeah.
That's really all it comes down to. At your own pace and on your own schedule. How in whatever capacity you do. Like, if it doesn't matter whether your goal is to become a best-selling full-time novelist or not, if you just enjoy writing and creating stories, as long as you write and I would say finish some stuff now and then, I don't see what we're still arguing about.
Yeah, and I do want to say one thing that had never occurred to me, but I've heard some people point out that saying you have to write every day, or it's almost classist or ableist, because there are people who physically can't.
Yeah.
And there are people who perhaps work 2 jobs and have kids and are just trying to make ends meet, and they write on the weekends or on their one day off or whatever. And if you tell them, if you're not writing every day, you're not a writer, I think they should legally be able to stab you.
Yeah, like definitely not like in the chest or in the head or anything.
No, hand.
Yeah, I'd say below the waist, anywhere below the waist.
Okay.
Below the kneecap is not considered attempted murder, so I think that's fine. No, it is. It's it's applying your standards to other people, and I think that's where the whole privilege thing comes from. It's people assume that whatever they can do should be the standard of what everyone can do, regardless of the circumstance, and that's just not true or practical.
Yeah. And for the record, the reason why people say write every day is because a lot of beginners have trouble getting a writing habit going. And that's why. If it's a habit to write, then you'll do it. But if writing every day doesn't work for you, then that's okay too.
Yeah, that absolutely is. There's no one true way. Yeah.
All right. What's the next hot button issue? Do you want to go back to Real Writer, or have we
No, I think we kind of wrapped that up.
All right.
The other one that we were a while back was an author had recounted their negative experience of working with a copy editor on Twitter, and a lot of people got up in arms over that. Like, you shouldn't air your dirty laundry, or it's somehow inappropriate to do that, or it's you hear the term call out culture. I think I saw that applied to it a couple of times. And everybody was drawing division lines over whether that was okay to do or not. And Mur, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
It's one of those things where copy editors are often like freelancers.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even know who your copy editor is.
Yeah.
And it's not like one person who works at this company who, if I start complaining about my book cover, well, the person in charge of book covers at Orbit is probably going to find out.
Right.
Because that's her job, and everybody knows that, everybody in publishing and Orbit knows that's her job. So it's but I think there's a disconnect. If you're not naming somebody and you know that it's this freelancer and you need to vent, because these people are not just going, this sucks. They're saying this was a real problem. There was a problem. It changed some things in their book. I mean, people have had people who were not okay with gay people, or people who were not okay with the they singular pronoun.
Well, we should probably qualify by saying that particular instance was the copy editor wasn't comfortable with the pronouns that the author was using, and kept wanting to change them to suit their comfort level.
Yes.
And it was both fucking with the story the author was telling and the flow of it, and it was also just based on prejudice, just flat out. That was the problem they were talking about. It wasn't just like, I like commas and they kept taking out my commas.
Yeah.
It wasn't just some root complaints. It was like this was fucking with who the author is and the story they were trying to tell fundamentally for the wrong reason also. So that's what we're talking about in the specific instance.
Yeah.
And I would also argue that's why so many people got pissed off about it too. About the author venting that. It wasn't I think if it had been, I think Cameron Hurley pointed this out too, is like people complain about their copy editing on social media all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's not an uncommon thing. The reason this had gotten so much attention is the subject matter that was being protested by the copy editor. So that triggers other people's prejudices, even if they don't realize it, and that becomes, well, rather than saying I'm uncomfortable with what you're talking about, it becomes you shouldn't say bad things about your copy editor. You know, they filter it into that. I think that was a big part of what was going on there.
Yeah, that's very likely true. I understand not dragging somebody professionally. On the other hand, I know, I've had epic stories about previous agents, but I never tell those stories until I'm well away from those agents.
Right.
I don't name them, and no one can say, like, you'd have to look really hard to find out who these people are.
Right.
So
tact, basically what you're talking about.
Yes, tact. Yeah. So I can see people saying it just happened and people can find out who this person is, although it's much harder with like a freelance copy editor.
Yeah, it really is.
But I'm still on the side of the author. I think what she was talking about is a real problem, and it's good for people to know that even if you have an editor, if your editor at the company is on your side and thumbs up for everything that you're putting in your book, the copy editor can still mess with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In that particular instance, I'm completely on the side of because the thing is, we can talk about this in two terms. You can talk about it in generic terms of complaining about people you work with in the industry, but then in this specific instance, I think and this is a problem that I think we encounter with a lot of things is what the author was talking about was an important thing that needs to be addressed. That idea of this content makes people uncomfortable and they let that influence their professional judgment, which influences the content and just perpetuates the whole problem.
Yeah.
But the thing is, once the author did that, nobody was talking about that problem. They weren't talking about the problem the author was talking about. They made it about you're saying bad shit about your copy editor and you shouldn't do that. So the important conversation gets derailed by the pretense around it. And that's what really pisses me off. And that happens all the time, especially on the internet. So instead of having actual helpful needed discourse, we end up arguing about shit that just doesn't matter because we don't want to talk about the real issue, Which I think was kind of Hurley's, again, coming back to Hurley's point was people bitch about their copy editor all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody makes a fuss about it because it's just regular, I didn't like my copy edits rather than talking about a real issue, which this was, But I mean, in terms of, in that specific instance, totally on the author's side. And also in the copy editor thing, again, people complain about it all the time. I don't think it's a big deal. If you want to build that into the larger topic of, how and when is it appropriate to vent frustrations or talk about disputes like that in a public forum, I think you've covered a lot of them. There's a tactful way to do it. There's removal of time from the situation, not using people's names to call them out specifically when you just want to talk about, what was going on. And I think those are important ways to do it. But I think that's the appropriate context. Is just having a distance from it and approaching it in a tactful way. Doing that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are just my thoughts. And again, I was very much, 10 years ago, I would have the attitude of like, well, fuck all that. Like, I was all about, we need to be brutally honest with everybody about the work all the time, as loud and as publicly as possible. I don't know why I felt that way. I think I was just an angry young man.
You were.
I was. And I was like, dude, if I thought an author's book was shit, I would talk about it openly. And name them completely and the book. And I didn't, whatever. I was like, take your medicine. I realized that's not a good thing to do, and I've stopped doing it subsequently. There is such a thing as professional courtesy, and also if you are it's one thing for a regular reader to do that. it's another thing for another writer to do that kind of thing. So I don't recommend it. It's bad. I think it just creates bad blood. And it can also be bad for your career. I think it's okay to talk about, again, issues, important things that affect more than yourself or more than one book, and are a problem in the industry. Like in the case of this specific case with the copyeditor, I think talking about those issues is the important thing, not specifically the people. I mean, unless there's one person who's just ringleading it and they're like, becoming a publishing Hitler, then that's another thing. But that's very rare. Publishing Hitlers are very rare.
They are.
Yeah.
Very.
So, very rare.
I want to go on a little tangent. And this is sort of what you were talking about, but not quite. When I became a published author, I went back on Goodreads and I deleted all of my reviews.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I know that people, some people review for extra income. N.K. Jemisin, Elizabeth Hand, I think reviews, Jeff Vandermeer does reviews, and they review for newspapers and so they get paid for it and they get paid to do it professionally.
Right.
But personally, I don't feel like I am just a reader anymore.
Right.
And so it's like I can read a book as a reader and have a response to it as a reader, but when I speak, people will look at me, and if they know me, they're going to think this is Mur the writer shitting on somebody that she is in competition with, because a lot of people see authors in competition with each other.
Yeah, perception is a huge part of it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I would only do negative reviews on books that I felt very passionate about. It's like, it was so good except for this one fucking thing. It drove me crazy, and it was like almost perfect. Why was it like this? And, so it's like, it was almost a backhanded compliment, because I was bitching about this one thing on this book that I couldn't put down.
Right.
But I'm thinking of one book in particular. But I know there are people who think that your opinion is still valid and it's stupid to do that, but I'm not comfortable doing that. I won't even give stars to books, because I just know that one of my friends is going to look and see that I gave their book like 3 or 4 stars and go, why? Aren't you supporting me? So, I mean, on the other hand, I know somebody whose publisher gave his book like 4 stars on Goodreads. And he's like, why the fuck would you publish it if you didn't think it was a 5-star book?
Yeah. It was okay. It wasn't great.
Yeah. So I was just curious where you stood on those things, because I like using Goodreads to track what I'm reading, and I'll make that public, but I won't give my opinions.
Right. I don't. I kind of stopped looking at Goodreads since I've been doing the Send As Your Books. I've kind of stopped looking at Goodreads because I don't want to see the comments anymore.
No, well, I don't look at my own books on Goodreads. Good Lord, no.
With that comes, I've just stopped using Goodreads. I will still leave Amazon reviews, although at this point, I really only leave reviews of books that I liked, just because it's, here's the thing, empirically, just objectively, removing all feeling and negative perception from it, we should be able to talk honestly and openly about the work. We really should. It should be an okay thing to do. It's not because it takes on a negative connotation, people misconstrue it, people's feelings get hurt. So it's just better not to do it for those reasons. But I do want to acknowledge that empirically it should be an okay thing to do. But the negative reasons not to do it, whether they're fair or unfair, right or wrong, just outweigh the benefit at the end of the day for everybody involved. Like, if you're trying to, because the thing is, when I used to openly criticize other authors' books, it'd be because I bought the book and I was pissed off that I paid money for it, and people told me it was good, and I read it and I thought it was crap. And especially if it was like, when I'd really get upset is I'd read a book and it like fell into a trend of crap that I was seeing. That would really upset me. And then I'd go off about, like, I really wish people would stop writing these books because they're crap. And that was, I don't think there was anything wrong, again, empirically, in me doing that. I'd paid money for the book. I was a consumer. I'm certainly entitled to my opinion at that point because it's an informed opinion, and I'm certainly entitled to express it. The reason I don't do it anymore is because it gets misconstrued by people watching. Like you said, like they just assume, and a lot of people did, and they would give me shit about that. They would, it's like somebody accused me of slamming more successful authors than me.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it comes down to, and what you're seen as doing when you're an author criticizing other authors in that kind of form. Again, when you're a professional critic, when you're N.K. Jemisin writing for the fucking New York Times, right?
Yeah, she writes for the Times.
When you're reviewing for the Times, that's a different thing. You're a professional critic. The context is there that people aren't. I mean, even then, I'm sure people still give a shit about it. Like I'm positive people do, but that should be an okay context. When it's just you on your own, you kind of got to accept the fact that you've joined the community of authors at that point, and it's going to be taken the wrong way, however well-meaning your intentions might be. So it's just better not to do it. For your sake, for their sake, it's just, you don't need to take the shit. That's really, honestly, that's the reason I don't do it. I just don't want to take the shit for it. It's just not worth it. So that's why I don't do it. And that's the truth. That's the honest answer. It's not like it's honestly not even an ethical or moral thing. It's just, it's not worth the shit that you take for it.
Yeah.
And also, the thing, I will caveat that. There also is the thing of, I understand how it feels now to have people shit all over your work.
Yeah.
So you do accrue a new sympathy and a new empathy for authors, and that is also another reason I'm okay with not doing it, even though empirically it should be fine. Like, there's no reason to go around hurting other authors' feelings. There's plenty of non-authors who will do that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. So those are my feelings, Mara.
Awesome.
That weighing heavily on you? Did I just drop some profound shit I just dropped on you there? It needs a second to settle. It's like the dust after an explosion.
Yes. I'm looking. I don't have the explosion. I've got a yes noise and a no noise and an applause. And I'm playing them all right now, and you can't hear them.
That's the fucked up part. It's like, even if you had the explosion noise and we're making it, we couldn't hear it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. This is a metaphor for something. I just don't know what. The sound effects machine that only one person can hear. It's probably a metaphor for our whole industry, frankly. But anyway, so that's the whole smack talking other professionals in an open forum hot button. And I think we explored it pretty thoroughly. I'm pretty pleased with us.
I think we did. I would put an explosion here if I could.
And I would mimic it with my own explosion sounds, because I like making explosion sounds with my mouth. It's a hobby that I have.
Now, of course, I'm really wondering if I did something different and that actually came through on the recording, so you'll hear all the ridiculous noises. But probably not.
I can't hear them.
You still can't hear them.
That'd be amazing if everything I just said was drowned out because you were just sitting there the whole time listening to sound effects noises. And then I listened to it, and I'm like, you weren't even fucking listening to what I was saying, were you? You were just playing with your sound effects machine the whole time. Next hot button, Mur.
Yeah.
Literary
is that me or you?
We get to talk about literary zines, which I enjoy.
Oh yeah, literary zines.
I enjoy talking about them. I don't enjoy literary zines. No, that's not true. You get into there's so much pent up hostility between genre fiction and like literary. And again, I say genre fiction, literary zine. Like, none of those labels really fucking mean anything. That's part of the problem, right?
Well, there's, at least in the MFA program I took, was fiction and popular fiction. And of course, the fiction people would get all cranky and call themselves unpopular fiction if we were popular fiction.
I mean, well, I'm just saying, it really doesn't leave much room. That is literally what is being said in that context. What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these labels are just detrimental on so many levels. They're, personally, professionally, psychologically, commercially, they're horrible to begin with. And I feel like I just want to start off by acknowledging that before we get into this.
Well, it's marketing.
It
tells you where to put the book in the bookstore, which is why I can't walk past a certain shelf in Barnes & Noble anymore, because I will complain loudly every single time because a fantasy book that I thought was shit, not even a good fantasy book,
right,
is sold enough copies to be considered fiction, not fantasy, not science fiction. And it's in that wonderful area, and it's okay for people to buy that. It's not a fantasy book because it's in fiction, so you're not a geek. And I would just rant every time I walked past it, and I just decided I had to stop walking past it because it fucking pissed me off so much.
No, I don't blame you. Again, Murray's not naming the book because we
Nope.
just talked about that. But yeah, we've all find me an author, particularly an author who is categorized as science fiction, fantasy, or horror that does not have a similar story or several hundred similar stories. No, I hate going to the bookstore for that. Like literally, I detest going to chain bookstores for that reason because they've truncated the genre section. Like it used to be, like when I was a kid. This actually has nothing to do with what we'll eventually get to what the hot button was. But fuck it, let's just do this.
All right, good.
When I was a kid, and I was talking about this on a panel recently at StokerCon. When I was a kid, you had a science fiction section and a fantasy section and a horror section. It was like half the goddamn bookstore, right? And, each one would have its new releases shelf with the hardcovers, and it would have its trade paperbacks, and it would have its own sign and its own fucking kiosk and the whole deal, man. And, like, as we've gone on in time, and now it's like 20, not even 25 years later, you go into the bookstore, and they've truncated it into, like, one kiosk, and it's science fiction, fantasy, and horror. It's all the same thing now. It's like 2 shelves in the back of the store. So I'll go there with my fiance, and I'm like, should we go check out the ghetto? Because that's what I call it. It's the genre ghetto. It's like back there, and then like right next to it is like costume masks and shit at Barnes & Noble. They've made it this one like niche geek section with all the geek shit. It's like put all the nerds in the back corner of the store.
Yeah, in my Barnes & Noble, it's close to the bathrooms.
Yeah, that's that's perfect. That is so fucking perfect. And I was saying, like, give it another 10 years and it's going to be like, the genre fiction 24-hour Chinese takeout laundromat kiosk. It's just going to keep shrinking into a drugstore rack. Only it would be better to be in a drugstore rack at this point, or like at a Walmart. They actually sell way more books.
Yeah.
But it's really but those labels, you call it marketing, and it is. It's the whole thing is marketing. But I call it anti-marketing because that's what it is of that stuff. Because when you're labeled that, you're just not going to sell any fucking books, The only people who go back there, the only regular consumers who will go back there is to like buy Game of Thrones and shit, and that's if they don't already have it at the front of the store.
Yeah.
Which they probably do. So there's really no reason to venture back there. I actually found that hilarious last time. They still had George R. R. Martin stuff in that section. I'm like, why is this back here? Like, why would this even be back here at this point?
That is interesting that Martin's back there, because, like, Stephen King, Neil Gaiman, author I can't stand, they're all in fiction. Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, also in fiction, also writes weird-ass shit. I mean, he should have his own weird-ass shit area.
Yeah, he's like bordering on like Bizarro.
Yeah, and but no, it's in fiction.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't like resent any of those authors, and if I do, it's for personal reasons that have nothing to do with their writing. That's where you want to be. Yeah, I'm happy for any author who is able to break free the shackles of genre labels. It's a great thing. It's not their fault. But the thing is that those shackles shouldn't be there. It's just really, in an ideal world, all books would be judged on their merit and there wouldn't be the stigma. And it's really messed up, man. I've been talking about this on Twitter. I don't think I've talked about it here. Please stop me if I did. I've been watching old episodes of the show Prisoners of Gravity. Did I tell you about that?
No, you didn't.
Do you know what that is?
No.
It was a Canadian public access show, which makes it sound awful. But it was this awesome show from the early 90s. And it was about this, the pretense of I can't believe I'm getting into this. I'll be really brief.
Okay.
It was about this guy. The premise of the show was, it was this dude, Commander Rick. He hated Earth because everything was war and famine. Everything was going wrong. He builds a rocket to escape Earth and flies into space, but he crashes into this satellite. So now he's stranded on the satellite, but he has access to 500 channels of television that he can hijack at any point. That's the premise of the show. What the show is actually about is science fiction, fantasy, horror, and comics. And the thing is, he'd pick a topic for every show, and then he would literally interview on camera like every science fiction and fantasy and horror author of the time and every comic book writer. Just like people you've heard of, but you never see these people on camera. He had George R. R. Martin back then. He had, Delaney. He had Spider Robinson. He had just like anybody you can think of who was published back then in any major setting, he would talk to them about any variety of things. So it's an amazing show to watch as a snapshot of like history of genre of the period. But it's also incredibly frustrating because I watched this show that was taped, 20, almost 30 fucking years ago at this point. Like nothing has changed since then for science fiction and fantasy and horror. It's only gotten worse, if anything. But they'll do a show on like marketing and merchandising, and they'll talk to Spider Robinson, and they'll ask him, "What do you think of the marketing of science fiction in 1991?" And I loved what he said. He was like, I don't think much of it. They asked Gandhi one time, what did he think of Western civilization? And Gandhi thought for a minute and said, that would be very nice. Like, if he says he felt the same way about science fiction marketing, he's like, science fiction marketing, that's a great idea. I wish someone would undertake such a thing. Mm-hmm. In 1991, nothing has changed. It's still marketed like crap, and people still won't buy it if it's relegated to that section of the bookstore. And it's ridiculous. So yeah, we got off on another tangent there, but I think it's a valid tangent to get off of. As to how you break those shackles, I have no fucking idea.
Oh, me neither.
Absolutely no one does. You need a bunch of people who make those decisions to be convinced your book is not science fiction and fantasy when it clearly is. That's the only answer I can come up with. So yeah, that sucks. What were we actually going to talk about?
I think we were going to get into literary writers who write science fiction and fantasy, but because their work is cerebral and metaphorical, they're not really writing science fiction and fantasy. Interestingly enough, I'd like to also mention that people who think The Handmaid's Tale is not feminist, which is not science fiction or fantasy, but I still think is just baffling.
Well, they don't think that The Handmaid's Tale is feminist?
Yeah, the people who were in the fucking show were saying, "Oh, it's a human story. It's not a feminist story."
Well, but that's a bullshit marketing line again, right there.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I thought you were talking about people who just honestly didn't see it, where they clearly fucking know it is, but they're trying to tell people it's not because they don't want to turn off potential viewers who are not going to watch a feminist show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee. Like, if that's the cast and the crew saying that, they have been fed that line. Like, I guarantee you, that is not an opinion they have. That is a producer or someone telling them, "Please, for the love of God, don't say this is a feminist show. We need to get dudes in their 20s to watch it." That's where that comes from.
Yeah,
and that's another whole getting into movie marketing. Oh my God, that's like a whole cesspool. I don't even want to. We don't even fucking have time. Mm-hmm. But the reason this came up, it was two things. The thing that you had seen was literary zines were starting to publish those stories that were considered. I also think allegorical is that's another big word that
allegorical,
that lets fantasy and science fiction off the hook. If you can sell it as an allegory, then people will. That's like a pretension that will allow them to read that crap, as they say. And I always hated that. I fucking hate when fiction is described as allegorical, because all fiction is allegorical of something. It's a fucking meaningless standard. But again, it's a bullshit pretension you can use as a dodge to get your book out of the SFF ghetto and onto the popular fiction shelves. A brilliant allegory of our times, when that's all science fiction is ever, is an allegory of our times. It's insane. And then the thing I had seen separately of that was, and this was just the other day too, everybody was talking about literary magazines not paying their contributors. That was another big one that people were talking about.
Yeah. That one's...
And I think someone had written a think piece defending them not paying. Yeah, because they said they were trying to explain, well, they use grant money or... I didn't read the fucking article because here's the thing. Anybody defending not paying writers for their work, I don't care what their argument is. It's wrong. That's just, and I'm not being hyperbolic. I legitimately believe that. If you are publishing a writer in any context and not paying them, you are wrong.
I mean, the thing I love about it is, you want to ask them, okay, so whether you're print or online, are you paying people for the paper or the web space? Are you paying people for your bandwidth? Do you pay people for the layout? I mean, people pay for all these things and they fuck writers.
Yeah, it's the age old. It's the thing, and we talk and again when I talk about our profession being devalued, that's the main way it's been devalued. People think they don't have to pay for writing, despite the fact they pay for literally everything else.
Yeah.
And they pay well for it, and it would be ludicrous. The idea that they wouldn't pay for it would be ludicrous. But you're just allowed to fuck writers, even if the product that you are featuring is a story by a writer. Like that is the main draw of the product. Everybody around that gets paid more than the writer. It's stunning. It's a stunning model that we've allowed to be created around us. And thank you, past generations, for doing absolutely nothing to curb that. By the way, yeah, it's the strangest thing. So not only are literary zines publishing science fiction and fantasy under the pretense that it's cerebral allegorical, they're not paying anyone for it. So good on you, literary zines.
Yeah.
I did see. I forget who made the point, but they were talking about why. Because I mean, SFF like genre magazines do better, not by a lot in most cases, but they do better than literary zines in terms of actually paying authors for their contributions. And someone was saying that that's because a greater sense of community is fostered among writers of SFF and horror than is fostered among literary authors of short stories. Do you think that's true, Mer? Or do you think that's babble?
It's hard for me to say because I don't pay attention to the literary short story world. I do know a friend of mine defended the fact that she had to pay to submit to a magazine. And I told her that wasn't cool, and she's like, "No, in literary, that's the way you do it." I'm like, "No,
No,
that's not cool." And
what the fuck is going on over there?
I don't know.
Is that a standard thing, or was that just a lie that particular?
Just don't. But I mean, this is even worse. This is not getting paid. I think the thing was the ones that get to writers off the
yeah, don't ever anything. No, I mean, in terms of your work, like. Don't pay agents, don't pay publishers, don't pay editors unless you're planning to like self-publish it and you're hiring an editor. That's one thing. But like in terms of submitting your writing to people, don't ever pay anyone for that. You should never pay anyone to submit. I mean, I guess like there are some contests that do that. I don't care for those, but there's a case to be made, maybe, I guess. But god damn, man, like charging people that you're not even publishing. That is just brazen.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know enough to call them all out for that. I really hope it was just that one unscrupulous thieving shit rag of a magazine that did that. God damn, I'm sorry for your friend.
Yeah.
And she said that's standard?
She said it was for literary contests or whatever. I don't know.
Right. Well, if you're listening and you know more than we do about the literary zine world, please do let us know if that indeed is a standard thing. I would really hope that's just a line that particular market fed her.
Yeah.
Because again, that's that's always a tool of people scamming writers is this is just the way it is with everyone the world over. So you have no choice. You do. Don't ever pay anyone to submit your work to them ever.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, so where I stand on that whole thing is pretty clear. There is no reason nor excuse to not pay your contributors. I don't care where your money is coming from. I don't care if it's a grant from a university or what. Like none of that shit makes any difference. You're just stealing from people. I'm sorry.
If you want to publish something, it's not our problem where the money comes from.
Yeah, it's not.
That's the thing. I was working for I was writing for an RPG and did my work, and the book came out, and a couple of months passed, and I'm like, "Hey, where's my payment?" And they're like, "Well, we need the book to make money first." And I'm like, "No, you fucking don't. That's not my problem. You paid for the printing, you paid for the distribution, but you're not going to pay me until you make money? That's not in my contract."
Yeah.
I could not believe that I was below achieving the black in the book.
Yeah.
I was just baffled.
it's okay to fuck over writers. That's the culture that we've allowed to be created at this point in time. It's just okay to fuck over writers.
Interestingly enough, Aiden Mower just retweeted Nick Mamatas' a tweet from last night saying, "Lit magazines can pay, but lit writers don't force them to do so. The secret is that in SFF there are a lot of solidarity among writers."
I think that was the tweet I saw.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one I think that's the one I saw. So yeah, I was wondering if you felt that was true or not. I really couldn't decide. I tend to think very little of writers as a group, any writers, so it's very hard for me to give them credit for, especially for organizing, because we have no organization as a profession. We just don't, and that's another huge qualm that I have.
What do you mean organization?
Like in terms of like unionizing, that kind of organization.
I think the closest we have is like SIFWA, because they determine a lot of the basic rules that magazines have to follow in order to be considered a pro magazine that is of a certain credibility.
I will agree. It is certainly the closest thing we have. Yeah,
yes.
I'm not going to go into a whole thing about that's a whole other fucking episode. But I don't think much of writers' collective bargaining power because we have none. So this is me admitting I have trouble giving credit to writers for banding together to demand money, because I don't see them as doing that very often. That's why I had trouble with the whole concept.
But again, if SFF magazines pay and literary magazines don't, then Mamatas has a point.
Yeah, he absolutely does. I'm admitting that's a prejudice that I have. That's why I knee-jerk immediately at that concept. Like, I don't want to give anybody credit for that, even though they might deserve it. That's why I brought it up. It's absolutely a prejudice that I have. No, he makes a very valid point. Like, if we're getting money that literary writers are not getting, they are obviously being even more meek than we are.
That's hard. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, it really is hard to do. But no, it's very frustrating for me as a professional writer and someone who writes SFF. I get very upset and bitter about the state of the industry that I was left with. And I do what I can to function within it. I do what I can to advocate for fair pay for writers and educate writers. I do what I can I just do what I can. I get very upset at what was left for me, and that informs my view of a lot of things. Yeah. With that said, within the SF community, with the meager resources we have been left with, yeah, there's organizations like SIFWA. They have done a lot to make sure that magazines at least maintain like a bare minimum of compensating their writers, and the thing is, it's like, yeah, you get the pro rate up to 6 cents or wherever it is. Is it still 6 cents or is it higher than that now? I honestly don't even have any idea.
It's 6 cents.
It's 6 cents. Like I remember when getting that up to 6 cents was like a huge fucking victory. Yeah. That was like a huge win. And I hate that is a huge win, because that is pathetic. But with the industry that we've been left with, that was a victory. That was an improvement. They do the best I think they can.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm an editor. I can tell you, people are not going to pay.
Yeah,
that's the problem. It's like we need to get the money in from the readers to give to the authors, and if the readers aren't going to give us a lot of money, we can't give the authors a lot of money.
Yeah, within the industry we've been left with, you do the best you can. It's the state of the industry that gets me down more than anything, and I let that bleed into my opinion of organizations and people a lot, and I probably shouldn't, but this is not to invalidate every complaint I have. I have some fucking valid complaints, but that's a thing that I readily acknowledge. They've done the best they can to maintain a standard within the market that we have at this point, and that's there's not a lot they can do about the market. So basically, kudos to SFF for keeping us paid within what we can, and literary zines need to fucking do better, because that's bullshit. Yes. And literary authors need to step up and demand that they do too. Like all that, like most of that shit is like centered around universities and too, isn't it? Like a lot of the zines, because I haven't submitted literary zines in a long time, but when I did, it was mostly reviews, like around colleges. Mm-hmm. Is that still the case, or am I off about that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the literary magazine field. I just know that they don't like popular fiction and they don't like to pay.
Well, those aren't two things to recommend them. My point being was, if but that was true at a time. If it is still true that a lot of them are made up of these reviews that are centered around colleges, you've got a built-in kind of organizational tool to like rally people to make them do better. I would think, if it's centered around a campus or a university or a student population. And I know a lot of people that do submit to literary zines are writing students. I would just think you have a built-in mechanism to organize and demand that they do better. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that if that's the case. If I'm way off about that, then please feel free to disregard my inane rambling. But literary zines need to do better. That's bullshit.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Where are we on time?
We've been going for 54 minutes.
Well, we should probably get to questions then.
Probably.
Probably. And we have questions. Do we want to start with email questions, or do we want me to go to the Twitters?
Go to the Twitters, because I don't have the email queued up.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Fucking stone cold pro, people. That's Mur Lafferty. That's podcasting Hall of Fame.
Hugo finalist, Hall of Fame podcaster.
All of those things are true.
Yeah.
The email isn't queued up, but all those things are true.
Yep.
All right, hold on. I'm getting to the... I say this as I don't have the Twitter questions queued up either. Okay, cool. So Mike Headley asks, is freelancing worth it if you already have a day job? And I want to thank Mike for staying on topic of the show with his writing question, because that actually is a very good one for what we do.
Except that he did not define what it is.
Well, I mean, we can certainly talk about that. I would assume he means monetarily or career-wise.
Yeah. Well, it's,
but I mean,
I guess there's too much wiggle room here. Is it worth it monetarily? Well, if you get a good paying freelance gig, hell yeah. There's a reason I don't write for role-playing games anymore, and that's because the pay is crap and it's very, very late after you do the work. So it was definitely not worth it for me to do RPGs anymore. But it was good to say I've written for all these RPGs, and now I have, a big CV, as they call it, list of things that I wrote. So it was good professionally for me.
Right. No, I don't think the wiggle room is a bad thing. It leaves us lots of room to explore. That's certainly one facet of it. I think it really depends, like kind of what you're saying, on what your goals are with your writing career. If you're somebody that wants to write novels, like if you just want to publish a book, and you have a good paying day job, then taking freelance assignments I don't think really matters. It's not, nobody gives a shit what you're freelancing. I mean, unless you really built up a huge following as a freelancer and you're writing something pertaining to whatever that freelance work is about, that might help you with a book. But if you're just writing like a fiction novel, you have just as much chance cold as that if you have a bunch of freelancing credits, I would argue. I don't think it matters. If your goal ultimately is to write freelance for a living, then yeah, you need to be building up credits. That's a thing that will absolutely help you do it. So it really just depends on what your goals are. If you're talking strictly about money, and yeah, if you get a good paying job, it's obviously worth taking. But like how,
You mean freelance job or?
Yeah,
Okay.
freelance job. If you get a good paying freelance job, that's one thing. But dude, those are few and far between. We gotta be honest about that. That's Well,
there are a lot of like magazines that you'll find in the bookstore that pay much more than 6 cents a word.
Yeah, they absolutely do. But cracking those as a beginner is a very hard thing to do. And I would also just argue it depends on, like, if you have a really good paying day job that takes a lot of your time, I don't know that pursuing that is really worth it. If it's just something you're doing on the side. If it is ultimately your goal to transition to that full time, then you absolutely need to be building up those credits. But just as a purely monetary thing, I don't see it.
I do recommend going back and listening to our Cassandra Caw interview from several months ago. She talks about the incredible ditch digging she did to start writing for magazines. It was inspiring and kind of scary.
It was both of those things.
Yeah.
I love Cass to death. She is a ditch digging all-star. If we had a ditch digging Hall of Fame, I would put her in it.
Yes.
We should have a ditch digging Hall of Fame. One day.
One day.
So yeah, Mike, it really just depends on what your goals are as a writer. You need to define those first, and
Yes.
then look at it from that lens. Mike also asks, how do you plan a series in contrast to planning a single book? Which that is more of a craft question, but I'll let it go because it does pertain to marketing and all that stuff too.
I think it also pertains to submissions.
Yeah, so it's valid. Murr, you've written series. How do you plan your series? funny. You're a funny person. It's funny what you're doing right now. That is the fakest laugh ever.
Oh.
It was good though. That was like community theater
All
good.
right. So write a book, make it end. I'm not done. Make it end. Leave some strings that you could pick up and take somewhere else. Because it doesn't matter how far out you plan, it's only the success of that first book that will make your book a series. It is not what you plan, it is not what you hope, it is not your big six book arc. It is how well you write the first book and how well you tie it up. As somebody who has failed to write 2 series, I could just say that you can't put your money on the fact that what you're doing will be a series. So, for me, I would say write one book well, have plans, make outlines, whatever you want to do, but just know that if that first book doesn't hit the ground running, then that may be all you get.
Yeah, you do have to go in with your eyes open on that one.
So I'm sorry that's not actual good advice, but it's advice that
It's real. It's based on real experience.
a little bit.
I'll take real experience over theory any day. I can come at it from a slightly different angle because
you have a successful series.
I mean, successful is a very fluid concept.
You have a series that managed to start and will end.
I do. I absolutely do. In 7 books, that's, but it's a novella series for one thing, so it is a little different. It's leaning more towards a serial novella series. And I meticulously planned it before I wrote any of it, because of the format and what I was going for. I knew that if I was going to do novellas, I didn't want to just do one because it's very hard to sell one novella commercially as a book. Because this was Tor.com Publishing. They were doing their new novella line. They were going to release the novellas as books, as shorter books in print and an ebook, which is a different. I mean, like, not that hasn't been around forever, but it's a newish thing for mainstream publishers. So I knew if I was gonna pitch something to Tor, I didn't want to just do one. I wanted to do a series because I felt that was one of the strengths of the format was taking the big book concept and breaking it down into a serial to give the story more longevity commercially, and also just kind of up your margins with several books instead of one. It just made a lot of sense to me. So I actually meticulously planned a long series because that's what I wanted to do, and I had to come up. I felt like I needed a good hook with it, so I settled on each of the books would be based around and named after a deadly sin, and we would do 7 of them. So that was like my gimmick for the books. And there's nothing wrong with a good gimmick, by the way. I want to say that right off. I have a lot of fun creatively with this stupid little gimmick I came up with for my books. I think it's awesome, and I have a lot of fun with it. I do take it seriously creatively. It isn't just a marketing thing. There's nothing wrong with coming up with a good gimmick for what you're doing. It can be a lot of fun to play around with, in addition to helping you sell the books. So that's just a different case scenario to kind of give you. Like in that instance, I was doing something that wasn't writing a novel that had serious potential, and then just seeing how the novel did before we can progress, which is much more standard. This was a different format and a different kind of marketing, a different kind of writing, so I had to approach it differently. So I meticulously planned out exactly what I was going to do with everything before I even pitched it to Tor.com. And because I had the gimmick with the 7 things, then I had to then creatively, like not ignoring the marketing entirely, I had to look at what would the story be over those 7 books and how would I execute it. And then that became the craft part. So it was really a marriage of the 2 things, which I don't think it's a bad thing or a compromising thing for the work.
But from the bitter, sad corner, I will say that your first book has a start and has an end. And if it had not taken off, it still is a good story that starts and ends and doesn't leave you freaking out that you won't get the rest of the story.
No, yeah, I looked at it like, and I look at novels. I just finished a huge fuck off epic fantasy novel that we're going to take out and sell. Huge goddamn book, biggest I've ever written. But that is meant to be a series as well. I tend to approach all of these things sort of like the pilot to a great television series, which is it's a self-contained story that I leave open for further expansion.
Yes.
So then I think that's how you should approach. No matter whether you're going one book at a time or whether you plan it all out in advance, that's how you should look at doing it. It should be a fulfilling single work to start off with, whatever happens after that. But there's nothing wrong with leaving, potential open for another. I didn't put any kind of like hard cliffhangers in it, because again, you never know. But it's like it's left with intrigue for what's going to happen after. So yeah, whichever way you do it, that should definitely be your focus. Is there anything you want to add other than that, Mer?
I'm bitter.
I know you're bitter, and you should be, because you wrote an amazing series, and as just a fan, I'm pissed off that it didn't get to fucking finish. So you have every right to be bitter.
Thank you. Yeah, what's the next one?
Ryan Van Loan has a bunch of suggestions. When you ask for questions on Twitter, Murray, you really kind of phrase it ambiguously. Or maybe you didn't. Maybe you meant to do it. I don't fucking know.
But I didn't. We weren't doing a specific topic, so
right. So Ryan has a lot of good suggestions for show topics that aren't really questions. He does end with: does Matt believe a blade drawn demands a taste of blood before it can be sheathed? Who or what is most tasty to Damascus steel? That's really a cultural thing. It's really whatever your culture demands of you when you wield a blade. I'm more of a Unitarian, so I don't play by any rules. I play by no one's rules but my own, Ryan, which I don't even have. So that's the answer to that question.
I'm kind of annoyed that he's not interested in my opinion on whether a blade must taste blood before you resheath it.
In fairness, this is not a gendered thing. Ryan and I share an agent and have talked about knife combat multiple times. So this is like an inside thing. I'm sure he would. I'm sure did he know that you were into this guy, he would ask too. But this is specifically referencing things we have talked about. Mm-hmm. Please, I mean, if you would like to offer your opinion.
No, well, he didn't ask.
Okay. Oh, for God's sake. What about, and this is someone who actually remembered to include the hashtag ditch diggers.
Thank you.
When you put the hashtag in the question, it makes it vastly easier on us. What about dealing with outside editors, especially regarding fantasy names and terms? By outside editors, I would assume Brenda means editors that don't primarily deal in fantasy.
I thought it was like if you want to self-publish a book, or you think your book needs an editor's look before you send it to a publisher, there are people you can hire to edit your book. Right. That's how I took it.
Okay.
And the word you need to learn is style sheet.
Yes. Oh God, style sheets.
Yeah. So if you have a fantasy world with weird ass names or a strange language or whatever, you make a style sheet and you say this person is this and their name should always be spelled like this, and here is all of the foreign meaning made up, not foreign as in non-English. Here are all the words that I use in the book and what they mean, and if you have any weird capitalizations, point out that for some reason you have a cat named Cat, and you want, when you refer to it, it always needs to be capital C. Just little stuff like that. It would make things so much easier on any editor you hire.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I had never even heard of a style sheet before. I started doing this series, and after I did the first book, I was sent a style sheet by the copy editor.
Yes.
And I was looking at this thing, and I didn't know what it was, and I realized it was all the names and crap from my book. And I'm such an asshole. And in my head, I'm going, why the fuck are they sending me a list of shit that I made up? Like, I know this. I made this stuff up. I know it. Then by the third book, I'm like, oh, right, that's why. They did me an immense favor, and I completely took it for granted. Because you forget everything. You cannot remember. I couldn't even remember how to spell, like, characters' names that I did. Was it a Y or an I on the end of the fucking name? I didn't know. So yeah, style sheets are an absolute lifesaver, and I want to thank the copy editor who creates them for me. Thank you.
Yes.
What else do we have here? Mitch LaRose says Pat Tanaka was a seriously underrated professional wrestler. This was not meant for ditch diggers, but it's true. So I'll just throw that out there. What else do we have? What are again, remember to use the hashtags. David Wood did. Thank you, David. What are the top 3 bonehead things you see aspiring authors do again and again? Put bonehead in quotation marks.
Well, we've already talked about one of them, and that's do stuff for free.
Yeah, I would make that number one.
And I want to put the caveat in there that if you choose to give stuff away, Matt and I both built our careers giving stuff away, but that's giving it directly to the reader, not giving it to somebody who pays someone somewhere something for the honor of putting out your stuff that they don't pay for.
Yeah, anybody making money off your work or making having anybody having any kind of benefit from your work should be sharing that benefit with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also charity.
Charity.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that earlier, and I was saying no. Yeah, that is a one exception. If someone's doing a charity act though, where all the profits go to a specific cause, then it's definitely okay to work for free.
Yeah, I was invited to be on the Star Wars Blue Milk project.
You were, which is amazing.
I'm not getting paid for that. It's for charity, but fuck yes, Star Wars.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, Star Wars. That's
Yes.
so cool. Like I wasn't even jealous when I heard that. I was so happy for you. Like that's just fucking amazing. You get to write canon Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, but that is a caveat. Those are caveats to the working for free thing. But those are the only caveats.
Yes.
I will speak in absolutes on this issue. If it isn't those things, you should not be working for free. So yeah, I would think working for free is at the top of the list. I was just thinking about another one that I keep seeing. I keep seeing editors complaining about it on Twitter a lot, despite the fact it should not be a thing. Oh, it's people having shitty responses when their stories get rejected.
Oh God.
That I keep seeing a lot of. They keep like posting emails that people send back to them, like, "I think you're making a mistake, but it's your mistake to make," or some shit like that.
Yeah.
First of all, when you get rejected, probably just don't reply at all. Just take the rejection. I think that's just a good. If for some insane reason you feel the need to reply, don't question the decision or say shitty things to them. Again, just don't reply, period. But like, especially don't talk shit to the editor that just rejected your story. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I know somebody who had basically someone go on a sexist rant when she rejected their story. And you remember people like that. I'm not going to go as far as to say, people have blacklists, but, you're going to remember the person who's a sexist asshole to you. And if they ever send you something else, you're going to think, oh, this is the sexist asshole. Yeah. I think I'm going to make that bar they have to clear a little bit higher because I don't know if I want to work with a sexist asshole.
Yeah, people absolutely have blacklists.
Yes.
They do. But you know what? They're not. It's based on. It's a meritocracy. I don't know. It's based on merit, shitty merit.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't, and that goes for like agents too. Anyone you submit your work to, and they choose to reject it, just don't send them shitty replies. Just take the rejection and move the fuck on, please. That's a horrible novice mistake. I keep seeing it repeated. I don't know why anyone would do that. That just seems like a common sense thing to me, but apparently it's not. And we need a third, Mer.
I had one. Hang on.
You had it, and then you lost it.
Well, yeah, because you started talking about the rejection thing. I'll call it the diamond problem.
The diamond problem.
People who believe that the book that they're writing is the best thing in the world and will never move on to anything else because they have to see this book published. Because they have fallen in love with the people and they care about the conflicts and they know it is the best thing that they will ever write. They know this is their opus and they will not let it go because it is so beautiful in their head that they can't accept the fact that maybe this is not your opus. Maybe it is a step towards your writing career. Right. I mean, they're just people who rework the same book and do nothing else for 10 years.
Yeah, that's
for 20 years. I mean,
mind-boggling to me.
These people do this, and you mentioned maybe you should put it aside and work on something else, and they look like you just told them to cheat on on their husband. And it's these people who just keep keep tweaking something, and then they send it in, and then it doesn't sell, so they keep tweaking it, and they remember that J.K. Rowling sent Harry Potter to 50 editors before it got picked up, and whatever, and it's like, yeah, But that's persistence in submitting, not working on the same book for decades. Because the more ideas you get, the more ideas you'll get. I know that sounds recursive. Recursive, is that the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. I said Meredith a couple of minutes ago.
Okay.
So I don't know about anything.
But it's circular logic, but really it's like, I've experienced it myself. The more you just sit there and try to brainstorm ideas, the more will come to you. People ask authors where they get their ideas, and authors look back and say, how do you stop yours?
Yeah.
And it's because it's like, if you encourage your brain to think creatively, it's like a muscle. It's going to keep working. So I'm doing a lot of hand motions over here.
Are you really?
I just want you to know.
You got all this jazz that we can't, like, you have a sound effects machine, you're doing pantomime, we're like getting none of it. Maybe this should be a video podcast.
It should be.
That's a horrible idea.
But really, but if you keep working on the same thing over and over again, you're just going to be stalled in that same story and the same characters and the same conflicts, and you're not going to move on. It's like you got the golden handcuffs of one series that sold, and no editor ever wants anything else from you except for that series, except you're not getting paid. Right. So move on.
Someone's gonna go write the golden handcuffs right now. It'll be like a 50 Shades-esque hit, and they'll share none of the credit with you.
That's okay. Segue. I just launched a new project today. And the project is called the Page One Project. And every week I'm going to be writing a new page of a new story, and I'm putting it out, Creative Commons, and anybody can take it and do whatever the fuck they want with it.
Hey, Creative Commons, known distribution. What was it? Hit me with the old stuff.
It's Creative Commons attribution.
Oh,
they can do whatever they want with it. It's just somewhere they need to say, this began as a Page One project by Mer Lafferty. Yeah. And I mean, they could just change everything, or they can sell it and make so much more money than I will ever make. I don't care. I'm trying to do 250 to 500 words of a new story every week, and I can take it places too, but anybody can take it wherever they want. So that is my new project. It is the Page One project.
You are committed to the greater good, Mer, and I respect that. Is that located anywhere centrally, or?
It's at merverse.com.
Go to merverse.com, Page One project?
Yeah, Page One project, which is being redesigned as we speak, so I'm not going to give you a direct link, but it's like the top post on my blog now, so, go there quickly. Of course, by the time I post this will be the top post on my blog. Whoa.
Now you talk about meta.
Yeah. Anyway, it's search it. Come on.
No, I like it. Page One project, merverse.com. Tell your friends.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Creative Commons attribution. That's all. That's the only restriction you got.
That's like my earliest memory of podcasting is like listening to you explain at the end of every episode what a Creative Commons license is.
A lot of people don't get it.
Oh no, I'm just saying. It's a fond memory that I have.
Aw.
So yeah, I think we have exhausted the Twitter questions. Mer,
okay.
You have email questions? Do we want to save some questions?
We can save it for next time.
Yeah, why don't we save it for next time?
Okay. The funny thing is, for us, that's going to be in about 5 minutes, and for you, it's going to be 2 weeks. But
time is an illusion.
That's right.
Podcasting time doubly so.
Right. Matt, why don't you say your stuff?
My stuff.
Your end of the show stuff.
Oh, the end of the show, the plugs, when I usually give you shit about forgetting to show.
Yes, but I'm looking for my notes, so you won't have to give me shit because I say everything I need.
I'm more prompting myself. Okay. Yes. So yeah, you can find me online at matt-wallace.com or on Twitter at mattfnwallace. You can find the show at ditchdiggers.merverse.com. We'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe on iTunes and possibly consider becoming a patron. Your donations help us make more and better shows. Speaking of more and better shows, Mer, did you know that this show, at this very moment, is nominated for a Hugo Award for Best Fancast? Did you know that, Mer?
I did know that. I did.
But it's fantastic to be nominated. It's an achievement in itself to be nominated for the Hugo Award.
We will receive little pins with rockets on them.
We will get rocket pins no matter what happens. So
yeah.
We've got that going for us.
Yeah. And we will also receive a present from the San Jose Worldcon.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they give presents to all the nominees.
That's really cool.
Yeah, next year's Worldcon gives presents to current year Worldcon nominees. But
I'll take it all day. However, we would actually like to win those rockets, and I've admitted that. And Cameron Hurley has given me shit for admitting that, but I'll admit it again. I'd like a rocket. I've wanted one since I was 11 years old. I don't care that it's meaningless. I want a rocket. So if you've supported us this far to get us nominated for your award, please continue to do so. Please vote for us for Best Fan Cast for 2017. Hugo voting is going on right now, isn't it?
yes,
Hasn't closed,
yes,
has
it
it?
is. Hasn't
So-
closed.
Has not closed. So go vote for Ditch Diggers for Best Fan Cast. In addition to that, if I can get just really self-interested for a moment, I have a new book out. It's called Greedy Pigs.
Woohoo!
It's the fifth in my Sin de Jour series that began with Envy of Angels back in 2015. My next book in the series, Gluttony Bay, comes out in November, and then next year we'll be wrapping it up with Taste of Wrath. So we're slowly coming to a close on the series, folks. If you've not yet gotten into it, please go out and get all the Sin de Jour books. They're fantastic. I wrote them myself. I don't know why I said
Yeah, I'll say that well, I love Matt and he's one of my best friends, and I'm really proud of what we've created here. Just as a reader, I'm gonna say the books are really fucking good.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it.
She wouldn't. Neither would I.
I just gotta say that if you liked my Shambling Guide series, it's like that with caterers and
Exactly that. I was
Yeah.
very much inspired by Mer Shambling series, and I have no problem admitting that. But it's like Shambling Guy with a lot of food, which I think is
Yeah.
how can you lose? Finally, Rancor, Life in Grudge City, my other novella series that began last year. Buddy Cop Luchadors, masked Mexican wrestlers, mummies, bacon wrapped hot dogs. It's a good time. It's from Parts Unknown Publishing, puts it out. Please look for that as well. I think that's all the things
all right.
that I have.
I gotta start by saying I think on editing something on my site, I broke ditchdiggers.merverse.com. And so if you go to ditchdiggers.merverse.com and it's broken, just go to merverse.com. All of the episodes will be there. And if you search for it on iTunes or Spreaker or all the other smaller podcast areas, you'll find it. But I like to have the Ditch Diggers site that is separate from my stuff because it's Matt's and my stuff. It just happens to be broken now. And as I said, we're working on a new website. Should be up next month. But
And I knew that. I think you'd said that before we started recording, so maybe I shouldn't have shilled the URL. Crack
I appreciate
operation
that.
we're running here, Mer. I'll tell you, we're just on top of our game.
You betcha. If you want to send us a question, which we're getting to next episode, which is 2 weeks from now, email mightymer@gmail.com. And if you want to talk to me on Twitter, it's also mightymer. My books
Yes.
are Six Wakes, which is the clone murder mystery in space, which is selling well, being well reviewed, and still available all places you can find books.
All the places.
Well, all the places. It's
Where the
on
books
Audible. It's on Downpour. It's on all the ebook sites. It's in your stores, I hope. And if it's not, you should look rather annoyed and say, "Hey, where's this book?" It's awesome.
Demand it.
But also, if you're into pre-ordering, like all the cool kids are, the I Should Be Writing book will be coming out in August, and it is available for pre-order. So
That is a book 10 years in the making, Mer.
That's pretty much, yes.
That's like, shit is like Jurassic Park, but of books based on writing podcasts.
Yeah.
Because their tagline was like 50 million years in the making or whatever.
Oh, I forgot about the tagline.
Years in the making. It
Sorry.
probably wasn't 50 million years. I made myself sound like a fucking idiot, but whatever.
At least you didn't say 6,000.
There is that. Yeah. Bill Nye would be ashamed of me if I did.
Yes. As Matt said, we have a Patreon. Because Patreon focuses on the user and not the project, the Patreon says it's patreon.com/mightymer, but Matt can tell you he gets some of the money, so if you support the podcast, you will be supporting both of us.
You will be, and we greatly appreciate it.
And the next show, we're going to be answering your email questions, and what else are we going to be doing, Matt?
On the next episode, we will be presenting the Freelancer's Rebuttal Guide.
Yes, which I'm greatly looking forward to.
Yes.
So, I guess that's it. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time. You can support us at patreon.com/mightymur.
Ditch Diggers!
Theme song by Devo Spice, devospice.com.